In the sleepy hamlet of Amagansett on the east end of Long Island, St. Michael's Lutheran Church was facing an uncertain future in an increasingly uncertain world.
Across the country, in all mainline Protestant denominations, there has been a steady decline. Resources disappearing, people disappearing, monetary reserves are disappearing, and increasingly congregations are facing an uncertain future. We're supposed to go out into the world and serve God's people. God's people are not always going to be the people who are sitting in our pews. They may be people who live next door but will never set foot in our congregation. But we are called nonetheless to go out into the world and to concretely minister, especially to the least and the last of our communities.
How does a small congregation with fewer than 100 members affect change within their community and preserve the future of their church? It took determination, a plan, and some help with a few friends. With prayer and persistence, the church sought aid from the nation's largest banks and the federal government itself. Forming St. Michael's Housing at St. Michael's Lutheran Church is a living example of what is possible. This struggling congregation managed to create a future for itself with a $12 million low-income senior citizen housing project and community center. Their story could be yours. This is how they did it.
The idea of affordable housing started at St. Michael's Lutheran Church 13 years ago. One of my predecessors was meeting with the church council and said, how else could we use the resources we have? This big field, the parsonage, how else can we use these things? And they started thinking about that and discerning it. And so they went to the town and said to the town of East Hampton, we think we could use the parsonage to house developmentally disabled adults. And the town came back to them and said, no, what we really need is low-income senior citizen housing.
But the pastor and congregation soon realized it would take more than a few idle conversations to bring the concept to reality.
My predecessor, Pastor Schock, became friends with Jerry Mooney, who runs Windmill Housing 1 and 2, which is housing for low-income senior citizens. And they began working together. And when they worked together, Pastor Schock brought the vision of using our resources for this purpose, low-income senior housing. What Jerry brought was the expertise and experience of already building senior housing and running a senior housing facility. And put them together, they were able to write grants to HUD for almost $6 million, which was funded. We were able to begin working with Raymond Wealth Management, the tax credit fund division, and we got about $6 million from them through the sale of tax credits. And we put all of that together. We got the best general contractor we could, and we started and we built, and now 40 low-income seniors live in their homes, and it's a dream come true for them.
Windmill Village first got involved with St. Michael's Lutheran Church about 15 years ago. We were not big-time developers, only 3 small housing projects of about 125 units. But we knew the game of the applications for HUD. A phone call to HUD will give you a listing of all the good consultants and people that do affordable housing for a living. There's people that know affordable housing and they're out there. And so from that, we knew who the consultants were and the attorneys, and so we had some experience.
When we wrote the grant for St. Michael's, HUD realized that the need was so much greater out here. The average age is about 72, I would say, and the average income is about $12,000 a year.
The money came from 2 primary sources. The first source was through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, which is a government agency. It was called a 202 program, which is money specifically for low-income seniors. The complex part of it was the tax credit funding, and for that we partnered with Peate from Raymond Wealth Management, their tax credit fund division.
Tax credits were designed to support a variety of housing for low-income individuals who are traditionally underserved populations. A tax credit is a dollar-for-dollar reduction on an individual or a corporation's tax liability to the IRS. So the IRS issues tax credits to developers who are going to build low-income housing that they can in turn sell to corporations through a syndicator like Raymond James for a price. And that equity investment helps the developer build the affordable housing with less debt, meaning that they can charge lower rents because they're not servicing such a large mortgage payment. The federal government has created this tax credit as an incentive because it is a financial incentive to banks. They are getting a stream of tax credits. And there is also this mission component where the banks know that they're investing in communities and they're helping to build housing for everybody in the community, which strengthens the whole community.
With their collective work completed, St. Michael's Lutheran Church, HUD, the local authorities, Raymond James, and the whole community were able to see the project come to life when it opened to the public on May 2, 2013. One of the residents of St. Michael's Housing has referred to himself and the others as the chosen ones, the very lucky few out of hundreds of applicants who got to move in.
People come in with stories that would break your heart, living in their cars. 67-year-old people living in their cars. And I had a woman call me the other day. She said, I'm worse off than I was 2 years ago when I spoke to you and I applied for housing. I'm living in my car. I'm up in the Patchogue area. It's cold. I don't have the money to go to the gym like I used to take my showers. And she said, I'm going to the laundromat to get warm by the dryers. What do you say to someone like that?
When we retired, we thought we were going to be able to have our own place. Our biggest problem wasn't so much that. It was he had a major heart attack before we were able to retire, which kind of chewed up a lot of what, So that's what happened. We weren't able to just get our own little place.
The reason I wanted to get into this housing was because I wanted to live alone. I just wanted to give my last years of life living by myself.
It's such a part of life to be able to close that door and say, this is all mine. This is my little apartment, but it's mine.
Living here at St. Michael's has been like, I hit the lotto. I hit the lottery. It wasn't, anything that I expected. I was just so pleased when they called me and told me that my name was one of the ones that was chosen. My husband was like, hugging me, oh my God, honey, thank God, thank God, thank God. And I came to see it and I was hysterical. I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe that I had gotten, my own little place.
Before I moved here at St. Michael's Housing, I lived with daughters. When Kathy called me and told me, it was the day before Christmas. And I was so excited. I cried. And I said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it that I will be moving in one of those apartments.
I think other congregations should definitely try to do this. It's a blessing all around. I believe that congregations could do this very successfully. I think it also starts a perpetual motion of healing and help for people.
We were living with our daughter in Center Reach, New York. We were with her when she only had 2 children, and now there was 4, and it was getting very tight quarters.
When we lived there, we had just had a room. Our life is very relaxing. We're very happy.
The surprise that I have is that I come and go as I please. I don't hear kids crying in the middle of the night. I can get up and, do whatever I have to do, go wherever I want to go, come back. And, it's like we have our freedom again. My husband and I have our freedom again.
The process for applying was not hard at all. I told the truth, and I just knew what information I had to give. I gave it, and everything was fine. There was no question asked after that. I just prayed a lot.
Once they've got the housing, they're feeling better. They're moving into the congregations and they're working with the pastors and they're helping their neighbors and they're feeling better about themselves. They're changing people's lives by doing this because people can't afford to live where they are anymore. Housing is just too expensive. I think 50% now they're saying is being spent on housing, whereas it should have been 20% of a person's income. Now it's 50%. How do people survive?
Living on my own in East Hampton was out of the question. I could never afford to pay the rents that they asked for. I'm able to afford this.
If other congregations would take the time to do projects like this, it would help a lot of people who have actually no place to go.
For the other parishes to do this, I think would be a wonderful thing.
Once they retire, a lot of people do not have pensions, or you're just going to live on your Social Security. And this kind of housing, especially on the island, if you want to stay on the island or around, a lot of places where it's very expensive to live otherwise, this would be the way to go. It helps a lot of the elderly. The apartments are enough and as beautiful as any other apartment that you could get at a lower price.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm taking my time getting settled because I want to spend all the time I can right in here. It's wonderful.
The hardest part of providing affordable housing is getting started on it.
Start. And you will get to the end. It will not be a sprint. It's going to be a marathon, but start.
There are many benefits to building affordable housing. Chief among them, I think, is the gift that it provides for people who are in need of it. So it's a matter of offering wellness and God's gift of shalom to people. And I think it also helps the congregation to have a mission and a ministry that's focused for their energy and their commitment. And that's certainly been the case here at St. Michael's.
We have a new vision of generosity. We took $200,000 of the money we received from the sale of the land, and we put it into a benevolence account. And what we are going to do as a congregation from now until Jesus comes back, we're going to take 70% of the interest earned on that $200,000 benevolent account and give it away.
Building affordable housing provides churches with the opportunity to reach out to their communities, to use assets that they have, such as property and financial assets and connections with their community, in offering a ministry to people in need. So I think that those sorts of benefits are tremendous for a congregation to consider.
When I was in seminary, we were not taught how to build affordable housing projects. We weren't taught most of what I've had to learn, kind of just doing ministry. But what I've learned is that over time, putting in the footwork, having a vision, finding the resources you need, finding the developer to partner with, finding that developer who knows how to go to Raymond James or other places to find tax credit funding, finding all those pieces, the congregations that have the land or the buildings necessary. When you put all those pieces together, then anybody can do this. Anybody can do this.